travelers, it's Kid Kenzar. I'm just stopping by to say that Jeremy, Jake, Jeff, and CJ have been absolutely killing it lately. Great job, guys. The episodes have been fantastic. Still one of my favorite shows to listen to. But with all that being said, I don't want to keep you guys any longer than I absolutely have to. We've got a cryptid or aliens or whatever conspiracy Jeff's got going on to learn about. So, welcome, travelers. You're listening to The Infinite Rabbit Hole. Enjoy.
Imagine that this line represents time, present 1985, future, past. Prior to this point in time, somewhere in the past, the timeline skewed into this tangent, creating an alternate 1985. Alternate to you, me, and Einstein. Fuck reality for everyone else.
Welcome back to the Infinite Rabbit Hole. I'm your host, Jeremy, and today we're going to sit down and talk to two special guests today. Before we do that, let's go ahead and bring in our co-host, Jacob, who's rubbing the sleepies out of his eyes.
Had a long day, all right. I was ripping up a flower bed for Whitney this morning. And then this afternoon, I was dropping off some chicken eggs for one of our neighbors.
Aw.
And on my way back, saw a whole flock of turkeys on the property. And so I ran inside and grabbed my shotgun and I ran outside. And within 2 minutes of leaving my door, I got my very first turkey ever for the Wisconsin fall turkey season. And it
Wow.
is now
In your
cleaned and
yard?
in the freezer. And it was probably about 10 pounds, which, you know, it's not like you get in the stores. They're
No.
not pumped up with hormones and stuff. But man, it was a blast. So that was very unexpected. I ran inside. I told Whitney, I was like, oh my gosh, oh, it's happening. It's happening. She's like, what's happening? I was like, there's turkeys everywhere. And I just ran inside, grabbed the shotgun and ran back outside and took care of business. And it was a blast. But yeah,
Wow,
and
what
then,
a day.
yeah, right. And then making us breakfast for tomorrow so we can have some fried egg sandwiches for breakfast and then showing up on here. So that was my whole day. Chores and a little bit of sporadic hunting and some
That's cool.
honeydews.
Nice.
Hmm?
Moving on to somebody who probably didn't kill an animal today. Hefe, what's up, man?
Did I kill any animals today? Probably killed a bunch of insects today. I cleaned some gutters for a lady today, made some money. That was it. Yep. Sat around the house. That's it.
Probably tore up a few birds' nests. You're a
Yeah.
terrible person.
Yeah,
Yeah,
man.
you're-
The gutters look good though, man. Brand new gutters.
Jeff, you're
too.
garbage.
Yeah. Call me if you're in the Florida area. You need that done. Let me know. I got you.
Stop being garbage, Jeff.
Stop soliciting.
My life is boring. That's all I did today.
All right. Now that we're past that boring introduction, Jeff, let's go ahead and bring in our guest for the night. Tonight, we have the host of the Elephant in the Room podcast, Ariel and Krys. How are you ladies doing tonight?
Ariel, you get to go first.
Oh, okay. Usually you jump in. No, we're doing good. Thank you so much for having us. This is just so much fun. We just always love connecting with new faces, especially people who are kind of interested in the same topics and just having conversations. And, you know, that's what you guys are doing. That's what our show is about. We bring guests on and yeah, we try not to create that echo chamber and we like to just explore these topics and talk about it.
Sounds good.
Yeah. And my name is Krys, and I am doing well today. I had a pretty lazy day, which is pretty
Nice.
normal, actually. Lately, anyway, it's been kind of normal for me. But yeah, I'm actually really excited to be here. Ariel and I had taken a little bit of a break over the summer, and so we did a show last week, and that was our first show back. And I've just missed the interaction with people and having the conversations and the dialogue. So I'm glad to be back and share the stage with you guys.
Good
So
stuff.
thanks.
So during the pre-recording, you guys were talking to us a little bit, and you guys had said that you haven't actually met yet. So how did you guys meet each other?
Go ahead, Chris.
Well, we actually met through Twitter, or X. I had been on for probably about a year and a half or so on the platform, and had built a little community of people who were interested in the UAP topic, and came across Ariel throughout my time, and really just found her presence to be so positive and uplifting, and just a really kind of honestly a different view from most people on X, because it can get really toxic there. And I don't know, I just felt just kind of a calling in a weird way. I wanted to share my story and my experiences, and just have a platform to like talk about them and think them through. And she stood out to me, so I literally just reached out to her randomly and said, hey, you want to do a podcast together? Literally never had spoken. And so we obviously said, let's meet and see how our chemistry is, and, you know, see what we think. And honestly, it was just really, what's the word? Synchronicity, the whole thing. You know, we just had these common backgrounds. Jake, I don't know what to call myself anymore. I feel like I'm in a weird place, but I have a Christian background. And actually, my husband and I did a lot of pastoral work and service, and he actually started his Christian faith journey in Southern California through Calvary Chapel, and we were youth pastors in Calvary Chapel many years ago. So now I wouldn't really label myself as that, and I just don't. I think it's more that I don't like the label. But it's,
and you're
but
sort
it was
of
really
deconstructing, like you're like in a process, you're in a journey of like deconstructing and just like putting your faith back together, like figuring out what you believe and not what people have told you.
Yeah, exactly. It definitely. And so it was really great because, and honestly ironic that Ariel was one of the people that I felt attracted to online to talk about this subject with, because she is, you know, a Christian and she's very strong in her faith. And I thought it would be, like you said, it removes that echo chamber, right? It gives us some different perspectives to bounce off of each other. And I don't know. So it's just been really cool. Ariel, what do you think?
No, yeah, I totally agree. And Chris is an experiencer and I am not. And I really love that about our show, because I feel like because of that, we're a safe space for experiencers to come on, because she can connect with them in that way. But also, you know, some of the people who are more, you know, academic, like they can come on too. So it's a very, like, we have a very wide range of people who come on, and I really love that about our show.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
So, Chris.
Yes.
What did you experience?
That's a great question. If anyone has the answer, please let me know. So I would say it's hard for me to share my story, because I think once you have an experience, you reflect on your life and you kind of see other experiences that popped up throughout that you may not have recognized as such.
Yeah.
But essentially, in 2021, I began to, I somewhat randomly dig into the subject. I think I saw, you know, I tell everybody that George Knapp and Jeremy Corbell are my gateway drugs to the topic. I think I heard a podcast, and I was in the Navy as well. So I heard a podcast, or I mean a show or a news article about the Princeton episode in San Diego, and we lived in San Diego at the time in 2021.
Were you aviation?
Say that again.
Were you aviation?
No, actually, I was a corpsman. I was
cool.
I was a corpsman.
Nice.
Yeah.
Dope.
Jake and I were aviation Navy.
Oh, really? Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Oh, good to know. Yeah. And my husband was, he was a ship serviceman, but he was stationed on the Princeton back in the day. So the connection was there, of course, when I heard the story. and I started listening to some of their, stories and digging into the topic just pretty briefly, but for some reason it captured my attention. And then within, I would say that was like March of 2021. And by May of 2021, I had actually captured my first daytime UAP on my phone, but at the time I really did not, I did not know that's what it was. I was joking. I was looking at the sky. It was, and I was filming it, and I was telling my dad, ha ha ha, technically it's a UFO because we couldn't identify it. Blew it off, moved on. But then in July, I had my first nighttime experience. Me, my daughter, and her boyfriend were getting ready to watch the 4th of July fireworks. We were on the roof of our house, and happened to have a nighttime camera that I had just purchased because I was into the topic and I thought I was going to start looking at the stars. And she was holding it, and she started filming, and a blue orb traversed across the sky, across the canyon from where we were. And, I said, film it. So she starts filming it, and it traverses across the canyon, and then it turns and heads, it was initially going like south to north, and then it went east or west to east, and then it returned and came back. But within that time period, it was like a 60-second shot, and it according to my calculations, it traversed about 6 miles. And again, everything is up in the air, right? You don't know what you're seeing distance wise at night, but I know what like trees it went in front of and behind of based on the film, and things like that. And it turned blue, it turned green. It turned blue, it turned white, it turned red, and and it was super fast. I mean, the way it returned, especially, it just like stopped on a dime and reversed. And so right away, I was just like, oh my gosh, we're seeing something, and then it hovered, and then it descended in a diagonal pattern. So it kind of looked like it could have been a drone. But like once I calculated the speed, and I watched that canyon for years after that, I certainly knew that it was not something, it was definitely something anomalous. And then I watched the skies pretty much nightly. And frankly, in February of 2022, I started seeing daytime UAPs at the same time of day, every day. I have lots of videos. I've captured hundreds of videos. And it was in this particular spot. And so that really kind of like threw me through ontological shock, because once I started realizing I was seeing something repeatedly, it has no propulsion system, it's moving, it's controlled. I just really was like, wow, there's something to this. Certainly it could be something maybe military or, but it was not something normal. I mean, it didn't appear to be anything that we would claim or to possess or to have. And this is over San Diego in a regular zone. And then I saw lots of other things. I mean, I captured black cubes. I've captured objects that look kind of like a jellyfish. Just multiple things. Of course, my footage is terrible because I have iPhone, and but those were kind of where it started, and it just became. It really took over my life, to be honest. It just changed my perspective of everything about the world. So,
is there a place where you post these videos?
typically on Twitter. So on my Twitter account, they're there. I have a few on a YouTube channel. But actually, I don't know if Ariel even knows this, but she made contact with somebody who's in the film industry a few months back. And I've reached out to them, and they're supposed to help me gather all my files together and do something with them, because that's one of my challenges, is the technical aspect of it. And, really getting them, because I'll post them to Twitter and people are like, I can't see it. And it's obvious, like, it is a small white orb, so it is hard to see, but I can see it on my screen. They can't see it on the upload. It's obviously, getting compressed. So I need some help with that. But Twitter is primarily, you can look through my feed and see all my past postings.
Okay,
I've been
cool.
posting pretty much since
What's
2021,
what's your Twitter page?
but Krys Divine, KrysDevine, or Awake While Sleeping. I think you find it as Krys Divine. So it's my
She's got
first
some
one.
pretty cool videos on there. I was snooping.
Good, good.
No, that's
couple
good.
days
You're
ago.
doing your homework.
I had to see what I was getting myself into. You know.
Yeah.
No, very cool. Ariel, you don't have anything?
No, and I think maybe Jake can relate to this. I don't want an experience. I kind of am closed off to that. There's something I don't know if you guys are familiar with CE5, and it's basically a method. I think it was, is it Greer, Chris? Greer?
I think so.
Close encounters.
Yes,
Yeah,
but it's
Stephen
like
Greer.
it's like this
Mhm.
CE5 method that he
Dr.
developed that
Stephen
you
Greer,
go out and you say and do certain meditations, and you're like calling UFOs or beings to you. And a lot of people, I mean, talk to people. I mean, it works. It happens all the time. There's absolutely something to it. Personally, I don't know what you're calling to you, and that just really freaks me out. If it could be
Demons.
some kind of
Yeah.
some kind of something that's malevolent or demonic. I don't want, so like
Yeah.
I kind of am closed off to the experiencer part of it. But I love listening to experiencers, and I'm definitely open-minded that it's not necessarily malevolent or anything bad. I just personally am like, want to be careful about what I open myself up to. Does that make sense, Jake? Is like, can you
Oh, yeah.
see that from a Christian perspective? What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's funny because one of our co-hosts, CJ, who's taking a break right now, he was joking around with me, and I was like, bro, I will look an alien in the face and tell him he's not real. All right, like, I don't care, right? But it's just like, it's not extraterrestrial for me. It's all spiritual based and stuff, and it seems to create a I don't know, a level of fear and anxiety in people that have encounters, and that doesn't sound like it's coming from any good place, right? Well, then again, you read into the Bible and stuff, and every time an angel presented himself, he's like, "Be not afraid," right? Because they don't look like
Exactly.
they don't appear like human beings. They look like giant rings with eyeballs all over them, and 6 wings, and like multiple heads, and all this sort of stuff, like crazy stuff. But either way, yeah, I'm not. I'm certainly not the guy that's going out looking for ghosts. I'm not going out trying to call in, do some weird meditations or ritual type things to try to call in some spiritual entity to come and harass me, right? Type stuff. And so I totally feel where you're coming from that. And on the other side of that, spending 13 years in the Navy, I have seen and have recorded my fair share of UAPs or UFOs, right? But it's like, I don't know. It doesn't, for most of the stuff that I've seen, it could easily be dismissed as, testings of new types of vehicles and stuff. Like, one of the ones I always like to point to is the SEAL who killed bin Laden. He was on a, I want to say it was the Sean Ryan Show podcast, maybe. And he said, well, anyway, so he said that so when they flew into the compound, they were flying Black Hawks, right? Black Hawk helicopters that had never really been introduced ever before that event, to the point where Obama at the time, because he was the president, they were sitting in the Situation Room and they were briefing him. They said, we're 99% sure that Osama bin Laden is here in this compound because we've seen his nephew, and they're always together, right? That's his last line of defense. And so they're briefing Obama, and they got the team there. They've got all the top generals that are working this whole thing. And Obama says, all right, well, is that it? Everything else? And they're like, well, so the vehicles, the aircraft we want to use are like super stealth Black Hawks. And Obama, as the president, had never heard of these types of Black Hawks before. And even the pilots who flew them were in fact Black Hawk pilots, but had never flown these stealth Black Hawks before. And I don't know if you ever heard of, we have them in the Navy. They're called, Sea Knights,
Seahawks.
Seahawks, MH-60 Sierras and Romeos. And of course, the Army, and I think the Marines as well have the Blackhawks.
Mhm.
But they're super noisy. Like you can hear them from miles off, right, going through. Well, apparently they're so quiet somehow that the terrorists in the compound for Osama bin Laden didn't know that they were there until they were breaching the doors.
Wow.
Now that is some super duper high level stealth capabilities, not just for radar and all that sort of stuff, but for
Right.
noise as well, right? That's crazy. So when I hear things like that, or I see the Congress sessions that they have, and they refuse to answer any questions, like we'll talk about that in a closed session. What that leads me to believe is that a lot of the things that people see in the sky either are spiritual in nature, which I'm very much assured that a lot of them may be, right, or they are top secret military vehicles that really would be just insanely asinine for the federal government to come out and say, yeah, we got all these projects, hopefully our enemies don't try to copy it, right, type
Right.
stuff, because they've got Lockheed and Raytheon and Northrop Grumman and all these companies that are private companies that are out of the federal government working on these projects. So
Yep.
but regardless, even if it was, well, I can't say that saying everything is a military vehicle, but then if you do a special ritual or something like that out in the woods and dance naked around a campfire, that they suddenly appear, that doesn't sound like it's a
Sound like
military
it's a
vehicle to me,
military
right? So yeah, I
Yeah.
totally understand where you're coming from, and the a lot of the pushback I've had, honestly, in this podcast has come from some of the subjects, because it's like, I don't want to entertain this sort of stuff in my brain or give it a space, right? So when it comes to the paranormal or the aliens or whatever it is, I really don't want to dig into it, because I feel like it's creating a platform for evil, right? Or something like that. So I certainly have my reservations, and I'm not going out and looking for it. Now, if it happens, it happens, right? I mean,
Right.
what are you going to do? It's like getting caught out in the rain without an umbrella. It happens, right? So,
Mhm.
but I'm not going to go out and like seek it out, right? Or
Right.
do anything crazy to make something happen.
Yeah.
Interesting. I find that interesting because I think that I think for me, of course, that was kind of coming from a Christian background. My perspective had always been very much, that discernment and, being careful what you open up yourself to and invite
Sure.
yourself in. But I think as I deconstructed some of that, I began to realize, I don't know, I think some of the fear started to fall away, and it wasn't like I would say I was inviting them per se, but I was open
Right.
to the idea of seeing them or of experiencing something. But but I think, and it's funny, Jake, because I never was into sci-fi or any, like, I didn't watch anything. I did grow up having a fear of UFOs, though. I did dream. I have a really strong dream life, and which is why my name is Awake While Sleeping.
Hmm.
And as a child, I had a terrible fear of UFO invasions. And I would have these nightmares of UFOs coming in, and there were pretty much lights in the sky. And in my childhood thought processes, they were, aliens invading. But as I unpacked it later on as an adult, I began to realize that it was these lights I was seeing coming in, these UFOs. But the invasion wasn't really the problem. It was our response to the UFOs. It was the response from the military, and that's what would cause this war in my dreams. So I started to really reflect on that, and just the concept of how our fear causes us to respond to others, whatever that may be. I mean, like you said, exactly, like, every time you see an angel in the Bible, it is fear not. There is a fear. There is a spiritual connection or something that affects, our perception as humans when we encounter something that's not human. just like if we encountered an animal in the forest, we would get fear. That doesn't mean it's, evil per se. It just means it is what it is. And we know that we should not maybe be in the presence of that because there is a potential of harm. So that was kind of the perspective I started to take, just because I didn't want to limit my perception of the world to what I was programmed to believe about certain things, which I know you have to be careful, but I did want to experience the world as it is, and to I'm just fascinated. I'm just curious by the world.
Sure.
It's just so fascinating to me. So, yeah.
I'm also very fascinated with the world. If it's a mystery, if it's something of the unknown or whatever,
Right.
I love it. All aspects of it too. When Jake and I first started the show, we were kind of bouncing around the idea of originally just becoming a Bigfoot podcast. And then it turned into, let's just do all the cryptids. And then it turned into, you know what? Let's just do everything.
Yep.
I mean,
Yep.
But nothing political, but everything else.
We just stay away from politics. But
Yep.
I mean,
Yeah.
we've covered everything from, near-death experiences to the Falk monster to UFO incidents. I mean, aquatic ape
Sleep
fury,
paralysis.
sleep paralysis. I mean, everything.
Yeah.
I love it.
I love the world of the unknown and just having those questions and then being able to look into what we have been able to uncover from these mysteries and try to add to that if we possibly could.
Yeah.
Or decipher it in your own way, like we do a lot here on the show, where we'll bring a topic like we just got done with a 4-part series on Hollow Earth, and we dove really deep into like the history, the literature, the concepts, the fiction, nonfiction, beliefs, myths, lore,
Science.
everything that you possibly dive into it, and we all dissected it in our own views. And
That's great.
I love the world of the mysteries, just good stuff.
So what do you and Jeff think about the UFO phenomenon?
Ooh.
Jeremy will never tell us. We always ask him what his thoughts are, and he's always like, "You gotta wait till part 4 at the very end to find out what I think about this."
All right,
Yeah,
all right.
yeah, that's true.
All right, you want to get into this? Okay, here's my honest opinion. Okay, and we just recorded part 2 of our Men in Black last week. And in that episode, we actually talked about it. Jeff didn't catch it. Whatever. He doesn't pay attention. He doesn't love me. That's okay. I can get by without that. But I'm going to be honest with you. The best thing that I've ever heard was that they could be potential time travelers.
Okay.
I think that's an extremely interesting point, and there's a lot of answers that are questions that get answered with that point of view.
Yep.
A lot, including why they don't make contact with us.
Right.
In the physical. And I'm not saying that all of them are time travelers. There could absolutely be other things. I mean, you have stories like Whitley Strieber's Communion and Fire in the Sky and a bunch of other really good alien abduction. Betty and Barney Hill. There's a ton of them out there, and I'm not saying that all of them are lying at all. I think they're very interesting in their own right, but I think that the majority of them are most likely time travelers out to make sure that we're not screwing up the timeline. Now in the Men in Black part 2 episode, I did talk a little bit about how just a theoretical answer to the Men in Black mystery, because they're so tightly tied into the UFO phenomenon. As possibly being these time travelers, these pilots of these UFOs, and potentially being the wardens of time, if you will. Basically coming out and making sure that we're not messing with the time, the time stream. And people who do have these encounters with mysterious beings are being silenced to ensure that we're not skipping ahead too far into certain things, which would erase, the natural flow of time, which would erase certain things in the future, which would mess a lot of stuff up. And I think that they keep their distance for a really good reason. And then if you look at things such as, their how they always go after nuclear weaponry and nuclear power, right? Like the Malmstrom Air Force Base incident where the nuclear reactors were shut down, after an orange light appeared, and they just went down. And then you hear about them always chasing nuclear carriers and being above nuclear submarines. Like we had just talked about Project Aquarius a little while ago, and how during Project Aquarius, when they were doing their remote viewing tests and exercises, the people that they were running these tests with claimed to have spotted flying saucers or something of the such above where these hidden Soviet subs or U-boats were, or German U-boats. And it's I don't know. I think that's one of the best explanations that you could think of. And it's strictly just because it answers so many questions, right? It really does. I think it fits very, very well. Is that my final answer? No. I'll probably change that at some point after I do research into another topic. I'm like, oh,
In
well,
the
you know
next
what?
10 minutes, he'll change his opinion.
No, that's Jeff. Jeff does that.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
I do change my mind a lot, but no, I don't think it's that crazy, man. Honestly, I think like probably 95% of all of these sightings and experiences are probably, I'm not going to say government, because I don't think government's competent enough to pull off some of these things, right? But like you were saying, Jake, right? And we've said it 1,000 times, all these like military industrial complex corporations that have these black budgets and these secret vaults of information and stuff that is classified, because they do work with governments and things like that around the world. So I think that there's offshoots. There's the breakaway civilization that's doing stuff. And a lot of what we're seeing is probably that. There's probably some advanced military aircraft that we're just not aware of, right? Of course, they're developing like the next, like 6th generation, right? We're all aware of like 5th gen everything, but they're already working on 6th gen stuff and at least designing 7th gen stuff at this point. So some of it's probably that. And then there's probably like a small percentage of it that is actually, it's got to be at least interdimensional, if not some kind of spiritual situation. Because I was just watching Sean Ryan as well, and I was listening to him talk to Avi Loeb, who's the astrophysicist, right?
What a good episode that was.
Yeah,
Sorry,
great
go ahead.
episode. And he's talking about all this stuff. Now, listen, I'm the first one to say that the information we're getting about space is bullshit, right? Like the data is this or whatever, right? They could lie to us, and this guy could definitely be spewing whatever psyop about space to all of us. But if he's not, what he's talking about is that the distances and the time it would take to travel, and like where's the lack of space trash and where's the lack of radio signals, and just the whole list of things. And Sean Ryan asked him flat out, like, is there aliens? You think there's aliens? Like, where are they at? And he's basically like, I don't see them, bro. I don't see them. I'm out here looking, man. If anybody wants to see him, it's me. All right.
Yeah.
So, and you hear this from like Elon Musk and these type of people who you would think would know. Right. So if they're not bullshitting us, then they're not here from other planets. They're here from another dimension or a spiritual realm, demons, right? And some of them could be angelic, right? Some of them don't necessarily have to be.
That's what I was gonna say. My I gotta throw that in. Like, I mean, why assume they're demonic if they're from a spiritual realm? We don't know intent yet, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
for sure. I mean, we could just.
I guess that's one of my weird concerns. Maybe I'm the maybe you can call me the woke UFOs. But I do have this concern that we just put these immediate judgments on I guess I don't want it to be another situation where humanity takes and makes assumptions about what this being's intent is, or, what they want. And we respond with such violence in so many cases. And I'm not against defending ourselves and protecting, ourselves, but it's just there's something there for me that makes me want to give the benefit of the doubt for some reason. I don't know. Maybe it is the time traveler thing. Maybe it is the idea that they've warned us on so many occasions about what we're doing to ourselves, or at least in some of the stories, in some of the cases, you hear like the concern about what we're doing to the planet, what we're doing to humanity, what we're doing to destroy the earth. So something in me tells me that it can't all be bad intent. I don't know. Sorry, didn't mean to butt in.
I disagree,
No.
Chris. Shoot nukes at him.
I know.
We'll find out what they're made of. They're spiritual. We'll go right through.
Yeah, we'll find out what we're made of too.
Yeah, right? Yeah.
I think the biggest reason that people would jump to them being negative entities is because, first of all, it's a human trait for us to fear
Right.
something that's like in the dark or in the shadows, right? Like
Mhm.
we're always in the back of our DNA memory worried about the jaguar eating us in the middle of the night. So, when we think about like, what is this? What are you talking about? This entity from another dimension or whatever, a spiritual, like it's automatically like default level, like fear, because it's like, what are you talking about? I can't see it. It could show up anywhere. What are you talking about? So I think that's why, since people could write things down, it's always been associated, or usually associated, with negative entities, even if they're not always negative entities. Just because,
Right.
even if, like, I'm sitting here right now, right? Like, if literally an angelic being showed up here, my thought about it is I'd probably be freaked out. Although
Exactly.
I understand that the essence of light and love might be overwhelming me to the point where I wouldn't be afraid. But thinking about that event
Right.
happening freaks me out, right? Like, oh shit, like that's scary. So
No,
And
That's
yet
why-
we have this collective consciousness of there being an other. Like, I mean, you go back so long and people have always been talking about aliens and, visitors and, so it's interesting that, it's so deeply there in the collective consciousness to sort of think that there is an other out there, yet to still so naturally have that fear.
I agree.
the others, yeah, that's interesting to me too, because I always wonder if there is other, or was other. Well, I guess we know for sure there was other humans at some point, right? We evolved with other humans, if you believe that. But are there still, right? The Hollow Earth thing, it's always one of my favorites, because
Mhm.
to me, if there's somewhere where there could be like huge civilizations of other human-like beings, they're not coming from Zeta Reticuli. They're coming from inside the Earth, probably, or at least
Mhm.
within this solar system.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I sort of feel that way too. I kind of feel that it is more local to us somehow. I don't know why I do. I just kind of I think there's plenty. I mean, look, we just there's so much unknown about our own planet. There's so much space in the ocean. There's so many things that we really
Right.
have not explored, or you turn over and there, honestly, I feel like there's so many things that have been hidden from us on Earth. Again, it goes back to what we've been taught. Look at some of the things we're discovering, some of the archaeology and just data and information we're discovering about, I don't know how to pronounce it, Göbekli Tempe or whatever.
Go back,
however-
Yeah. Hefe knows that
all
one.
these things, everything is like hidden from us, and there's so much yet unexplored about our own Earth. And I think that it is very much likely that they are coming from somewhere closer, or they exist somewhere closer. And I think the other favorite, again, my theories will probably change the rest of my life as well, but I think one of my favorite things is just this idea that we live in a world where our perceptions are filtered. As humans, we currently exist where we are filtered from viewing certain things in certain ways, and maybe those filters could change, as we evolve, or as consciousness expands, or as we get a microscope or a telescope, or we add some sort of tool to our tool set, we might start to see the bacteria and viruses for what they are versus, or the aliens or whatever. I mean, I just think there's so much unexplored in our own world that we have to start talking about it and applying science to it, and stop ignoring it and telling people they're crazy, because there's so much evidence that we need to start looking at it.
Yep.
So, what about outside of the realm of UFOs? Is there anything else that you guys look into?
I'm definitely interested in Bigfoot too. In cryptids.
Nice.
I think, there's definitely a connection there. It was sort of, the UFO thing that led me to cryptids, because there is so often that connection of portals or people seeing UFOs, after they saw the Bigfoot or whatever. And so I'm definitely, I want to get more into the cryptid thing. But I mean, one thing at a time, really. I don't have time to just jump into, all these topics simultaneously. But I think that's one thing I'd like to explore. And Krys and I also we really love the topic of consciousness and, just more philosophical concepts. We've had Dr. James Madden on our show, and he's a philosopher. And, half the time we were just talking about kind of what Krys was just saying is, how we as humans operate, and how we are just viewing the world through very limited, in a very limited sense, in a very limited way, when you strip it all down. And so, yeah, we kind of get into a lot, and we have a lot of little bunny trails here and there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we're, as human beings on this planet, we're still killing each other over lines and dirt. So yeah. We have very limited views of everything.
Absolutely.
I'll tell you what, though, as far as Bigfoot goes, Jeremy has a Bigfoot experience that I would rather have the aliens land in my backyard than have shared his experience with
Ooh, tell
Bigfoot.
us.
Oh my gosh, I want to hear.
Ah, man.
If you want to share
The whole thing.
No, I mean, I would love to share it. The only thing is that my listeners have already heard it like a dozen times.
Nope, tell it. They haven't heard it.
Just give us like the quick abbreviated version.
All right. So when I was 9 years old,
Wow.
I was playing with my BB gun in southern Vermont, and I was down at a field that was like right off the property. I'm not going to say whose property it was, but it wasn't my property. It was a family member's property. And there was this deer out in the middle of the field that I had come up to, and I was going to shoot her in the butt with a BB gun, just because, 9-year-old boys doing stupid shit, right? Sorry, excuse my language. So I went to go put her in the crosshairs of this brand new scope that I had, and all of a sudden she's gone. I'm thinking that she just ran off, so I kind of trailed a little bit trying to find her, and then I pulled my eye down, or the gun down, so I can look, and she's on the shoulder of this tall, hairy being walking off to like the 2:00 position from where I'm at. And as this thing walks into the tree line, he takes, or she or he or whatever it was, takes this thing, lifts it up by the neck, and because the deer's screaming or doing whatever, whatever noise it can do.
That bleeding sound they do,
Yeah. It's like, takes it and just slams its head up against a tree. And then I don't remember if it put it back over his shoulder or not, but it just continued to walk into the tree line, and scared the living piss out of me. Like
yeah. I mean, that gives me goosebumps. Like, what the hell?
May or may not have wet myself, but I was 9.
Definitely did.
I don't think it matters what age you would be.
But still, I mean, at 9 years old, you know what you saw.
Yeah.
I did not. So
I mean, but in the sense
real.
of like being real, like you knew that you weren't hallucinating.
Oh yeah. No, I definitely knew it was something. It was something physical.
Right.
It was covered in hair. It was on 2 legs.
That's what
it
I'm
wasn't.
saying. Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't a bear. Honestly, at 9 years old, I thought it was a werewolf. I didn't know what a Bigfoot was. I didn't know, I mean, yeah, Harry and the Hendersons existed at that time, but I didn't make that connection. I didn't even know that movie existed at the time.
Yeah.
I still haven't watched a lot of movies. Do we need to get
Yeah.
into that, guys?
He hasn't
Do we
watched
need to
Star Wars.
do we need to tell the listeners that for the 100th time?
He hasn't watched Lord of the Rings, Star
Jeremy's
Wars.
Jeremy's
He
a
hasn't
big
watched
movie
Christmas
buff.
Vacation.
Nothing.
He's
Garbage.
a movie
Nothing.
guy.
So yeah, I originally just thought it was a werewolf. I that's the connection that I made, and it wasn't until I was probably 11 or 12 years old, staying home sick from school one day, where I was on the Sci-Fi Channel, back in the day where you had to actually flip through the channels, and I'm watching In Search Of. I don't know. I didn't have any interest in it at all or anything like that. It was just something interesting that was on.
Yeah.
Because daytime TV used to suck. I don't know if the kids won't understand that, but it used to be terrible. And I was just watching it, and they were doing an episode on the Patterson-Gimlin film and Bigfoot in general, and I'm like, pretty sure that's what I freaking saw. So yeah, that's even until this day. I mean, I'll tell you that I'm not 100% sure it was a Bigfoot, right? Especially when you have the stories of like dogmen around and other various cryptids and everything. But if you take the location, if you take the time of the year, because it was in spring, it just the way it was walking, it walked very, very human-esque like. It just rings Bigfoot now that I know what it is.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting because I remember hearing stories. I'm from New Mexico, so obviously lots of UFO lore and things like that from there. But I grew up in the southwest corner, which was in the forest, and I grew up hunting and fishing, and I do remember hearing stories of Bigfoot. I mean, I don't remember who talked about him, or but it just was something that did come up as a kid. But I laugh because I talk to people now, and I'm like, when I saw the stories about UFOs, I really did not have a concept. I thought they were nuts and bolts. I thought we were talking about physical craft. And then when you get into the topic, that's where everything just changes. And, your perspective changes because you start to hear people's stories. You start to hear these experiences, and you recognize that somehow there's something way beyond the physical that's involved. So, the story you tell, Jeremy, reminds me of a gal we had on our show, on one of our episodes, and she's the head of the UFO Society at Yale.
Oh, nice.
And she had an experience like 2 or 3 years ago at a public park in the Pacific Northwest, her and a girlfriend, and they saw like a UFO first and it disappeared, and then they saw like a Bigfoot or something that she didn't describe it as Bigfoot, but like a physical corporeal being. Just like, that's what I'm saying, these commonalities between these stories, seeing these lights or this, craft, and then a Bigfoot nearby. It's all like so fascinating to me how it's tied in together, or why it appears to be anyway.
Yeah, I'm a big book nerd. I have a lot of books back here. This is only one of my libraries. I have a library upstairs too.
Carter Bushart. You need to talk to Carter.
Well, Carter Bushart's not the route I was going to. That's the Mindspeak Bigfoot. But if she's really interested, if you are interested in the UFO Bigfoot connection, I highly recommend an author named Stan Gordon. He's from Pennsylvania, and he dives really heavily into the entire connection between Bigfoot and flying saucers or other various UFOs, especially like the lights, like the orange light, the white light that people see. Very, very interesting.
I think I have a follower who has met him. I think a while back. Yeah, someone told me they were. Is he still alive?
I believe he is.
I'm pretty sure a while back I had a follower message me saying that he was going to lunch with him.
Yeah, Stan Gordon is. I'm gonna be honest with you. He's a certain flavor, right? So if you don't have an open mind when it comes to a possible connection between Bigfoot and UFOs, I would not read it. But if you have an open mind, you're willing to look down every avenue. He definitely brings some really good evidence to the table.
Does he come to any sort of conclusion about why there's the connection there?
I don't, not in this book. I have another book by him too. I just don't know where it is, and honestly, not in that one too. But he has a bunch of books, and he has to at some point, very early in our time of being a podcast. I was gonna reach out to him. I probably should, just to see.
You probably should.
Yeah, probably should.
You probably should.
Yeah.
I guess I should.
Three people said it.
And you know, that's probably a question that I could just ask him in person. That'd be really cool,
That would
actually.
be cool.
That would be.
But yeah, anybody from Pennsylvania who is interested in Bigfoot or UFOs and possibly the connection, I highly recommend Stan Gordon. Very good stuff.
Isn't CJ in Pennsylvania?
He is in Pennsylvania. He is.
You better do the thing.
Yeah, well, he quit, so CJ, you're dead to me.
Yeah, you're dead to us, CJ. We don't even want your picks
Yes,
for our
CJ.
OF.
Yeah, we're not going to make money off of your feet.
Right.
I don't back these guys, CJ. I'm not on their team. I'm on your team.
I only say that because he still listens to every episode. He's a trooper. Love CJ.
Aw.
Yeah, we love you even though you're dead to us.
Yeah.
You can send us your
feet
feedback.
too.
We might not post them, but we might. We'll put them in the calendar.
So CJ was the fourth corner for us. He was the occultist, witchcraft,
wow.
the paranormal, that kind of stuff.
Wow.
So we really had everything kind of
That's really cool. That's cool. I mean, I like that diversity of thought, and
yeah, and then he left us. So
The arguments we would get in, they were so good.
Oh, they were.
I bet. You'll have to send us some of like your best argumentative episodes, and we'll give it a listen. I live for that.
Yeah, that would be fun.
Yeah, right.
I can't name off the top of my head. There's so many.
Let's see, the space is fake debate.
I don't think he was in that one.
He wasn't, but that was pretty argumentative.
Oh,
Ooh,
yeah, it was.
yes.
Dinosaurs are fake.
Yep.
We got heated in that one.
We've had some classic arguments on this show.
Usually when I say something is fake, it gets pretty heated.
Yeah.
We're still waiting on the nukes are fake. He hasn't come to the bat.
You guys are waiting on
that one
nukes are fake. You're waiting on gravity's fake. I mean,
Oh
dude,
my gosh.
listen, okay.
Look, well, Jeff is this sort of guy. So he's like, I'm not saying that nukes are fake, even though he just said it. He's like, I'm just saying that I've never seen a nuke. I know there's large explosions, but that doesn't mean it's nuclear or gravity. Well, gravity is just a term that people place on, the idea of if you drop something, it falls to the ground. That doesn't mean that it's gravity. It's just what they call it. I'm like, just gonna leave. I'm done.
Oh man, have you met my son? I feel like he will argue about anything I say. So
Listen, I can make some pretty good arguments. I've changed these guys' minds on more than one thing.
That's
So
Like
with
what?
you three bringing such different perspectives, I mean, what is your thought on just, is there ultimate truth? I mean, if everybody is always having their own beliefs and you all think that you're right, I mean, how are you ever supposed, are you just saying, okay, I'm good to just, this is my belief and I can respect your belief? Or do you take it that step further of like, no, one of us is right and the rest of you are wrong, but then you all think you're right and the rest of you are wrong? Like, how do you kind of navigate that?
So the problem with that is that I think that's like the scientific method, is to allow for the possibility of even myself being wrong. But the problem is with the topics that we cover, I mean, a snallygaster would have to break through my window for me to believe that snallygasters exist, right? like I'd have to see one straight up. So I mean, we don't really take that approach. It's kind of like, here's our hard stance on it. but I could be wrong type
Right.
stuff, right? Because, when it comes to Bigfoot, whether or not he's able to mind speak or it's able to mind speak or it has a connection with UFOs, or in my mind, it's just another animal that God created because we had the Gigantopithecus at some point.
Mhm.
At some point, people crossed from Asia over the Bering Strait land bridge and got in North America, and we got Native Americans and all this sort of stuff. Why didn't animals do the same thing? So that's where I fall in that category. But with any of these things, with aliens, with the idea that maybe there's pterodons flying around in South America somewhere, or that there's gargoyles in
Puerto Rico.
the Puerto Rican gargoyles, or the chupacabra exists, or whatever it is. There is ultimate truth. We just don't know it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? There is an ultimate yes, this exists, or no, this does not exist, but we don't know it. So when it comes to those sorts of topics,
Right.
it's very much like, these are my opinions on it, but it could always change. When it came to the Hollow Earth, I'm just like, I'm not buying what Admiral Byrd had to say about his journey to the Hollow Earth. Could it exist? I guess. There's no way for me to know, because I'm not physically myself gonna take a trip to Antarctica to go find the giant hole in the ground to go explore to see if there's a Hollow Earth. It's never gonna happen. I don't have the
Bummer.
funds for that sort of nonsense. I got bills, right? So, so a lot of these topics that we have, yes, there is an ultimate truth. Now, we don't know it, right? Except for when it comes to, I would say the only thing where I am 100%, you can't shake me, is on my faith in Christ. Like, that's it, right?
So that's my question, Jake.
What's that?
How are you so sure about that and nothing else? Like, when you say, and I'm not trying to be disrespectful at all. But when you
whatever.
say, like, if I see, I have to see a chupacabra, or have to, why is it different with God?
I would say the history, science backing itself into the Bible constantly through scientific discoveries. The culture at the time of Jesus, like even non-Christian historians and paleontologists, archaeologists, archaeologists agree that Jesus existed, right?
Sure.
And they agree that he had a bunch
Of
of followers that went to their death. Very rarely do people actually allow themselves to be executed for things they know is a lie. So they 100% believe that they saw what they saw. So there's the historical aspect of it, the cultural aspect of it, of his existence, the way that there's portions of the Bible where it's like Mary Magdalene was the first one to go to Jesus' tomb. If this was a fantasy thing written by Jewish, authors at the time, to this great guy that we know named Jesus, they would never have a woman discovering the empty tomb first. It would always be a man, because culturally the woman was, underneath the man, right?
Right.
So there's just a lot of that.
So for you, there's still you still use evidence to persuade, or to support your belief system, like evidence of other people's testimony, other people's, in the same way that, a group of people, might see UFOs together, like, see what I'm saying? There's still historical evidence. Like earlier when we were talking about, technology and black ops, government.
Sure.
Yeah. But like, we're talking about, 50, 60, 70, 80 years ago. Like, did this stuff exist then? There's still people back then that were testifying to these things. So it's like,
I'm not saying that they didn't see what they saw. I'm just saying that they're wrong.
Well, how come Mary Magdalene wasn't wrong? Like, what convinces you of that story versus what other people saw? Maybe I'm just starting a debate. I haven't debated in a long time.
You're just playing devil's advocate. It's okay.
Yeah.
No, that's true. We could have our own bias and stuff.
Yeah.
I think there's
Um,
something to say because, like, I'm not necessarily me and Jake have had long talks about this before, right? And I'm
Very.
not the religious type, but I do have like a spiritual tendency, I guess, right? Like, I believe in some form of higher power, right?
Right.
Um, but I think really what happens is like when you start to think about something that's on that level, like that's why they call it faith, first of all, right? Like you have to just put faith
Yeah.
into something, right? Whatever religion it is or whatever your faith goes into, you just put the faith into it. There's no way to prove one way or the other. But there's something to be said about the fact that like the Bible itself, whether or not it's been manipulated throughout history, the fact remains that the book has lasted through history, and encoded within that book are important pieces, right? This is something I've always been interested in, right? All that Bible code shit back in the day.
Oh
and
yeah.
there's all these people that talk about, hey, look, you can find information encoded in this Bible, whether it's like chemistry related stuff, like how they encode the colors and things like this, how the church was putting this stuff in the book back in the days. Just that in and of itself, all the information that has tracked its way through 2,000 plus years through history is a miracle in itself, right? So
Mhm.
me not being a religious person per se, still hold that information and like the historical information in that book and all the other stuff that's secretly encoded, and maybe some of it's not, but there is definitely some stuff in there. Like to me, like I hold that on some pedestal, right? It's
Sure.
not just nothing.
It's not just another book or
It's got to
another
be
story.
something, right? And I would say the same for any of these major religious
Yeah.
texts, right? You could dig
Yeah.
one out of a cave right now
Yeah.
for some culture that none of us talk about, and I would
Right.
say the same thing. I'd be like, wow, that lasted 8,000 years in that cave, and we're digging it up today to read it and translate it with AI or whatever it is. Like, there's a reason for that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So there's
Yeah.
something there, at least from my perspective. So I think going back to your question, like, how do we come to terms with some of the stuff with each other sometimes? Is we kind of leave a little bit of room. At least I do. I like to leave room for that kind of thing, right? So when
Yeah.
when I go on a tangent about like, hey man, weather modification's real, I'm not necessarily saying, hey, they're creating hurricanes or anything.
Mhm.
I'm not necessarily saying that they are steering them or anything like that. I'm just saying like they could be, and if you were
Mhm.
them and you could do it, would
Right.
you? And that's
Mm.
kind of, you just leave enough room
Mhm.
so at the end of the episode we could cut it somewhere and be like, all right, look, man, we agree enough.
That's
You
a
know?
good point because the Bible in itself is 40 different authors over 1,500 years talking about people's walk with God, that they couldn't meet up to his standards. And so God said, all right, well, you guys suck, so I'm going to do it for you. And all I require from you is a relationship with me. That's all it is. The platypus exists, and the Bible doesn't say anything about the platypus. So there is room for
Yep.
scientific discovery and zoological discovery and discovery of other types of history, right? It doesn't go into the history of the Mongols in the Bible, but we know that the Mongols existed, right? So it's like, with the exception of who I say Jesus is and what Jesus did for humanity, a lot is left open. And
Well, and
very
that
rarely,
includes alien life too. I mean, God could have created
well,
alien life
it,
across the galaxy.
it certainly could. And to that, I would say that I find it to be incredibly unlikely just because of the lack of evidence of aliens, besides UAPs and UFOs and onesie twosie events where people say they actually had contact. But when it really boils down to it, it's nothing more than just them saying, I had this experience.
Right. There's
There's
100
no real other
possible
evidence of it, right?
explanations. Yeah.
So, and very rarely in our podcast do we ever get into hard, like we're not bringing on a Islamic imam, right? We're not bringing a Buddhist monk on and being like, well, what do you believe, right? So there's never really an opportunity where I'm going to have a full on, faith-based debate with
Right.
someone. And I don't think that there's anyone here on the
Now.
show that would ever, between Jeff or Jeremy, that would ever say Jesus existed as a person. Now they might say his deityship is in question, and that's,
Right.
of course, what Jeff said, where faith comes in. But yeah, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, when it comes to aliens, I mean, there's probably some cool looking cows somewhere on another planet, you know? I mean, like, why not, right? A cool science experiment or whatever. But I mean, it's like, it just, for me, it's, if we were to take all the spiritual stuff out of aliens, UAPs, and all that sort of stuff, if I took all that stuff off the table and I just said that there's a physical being out there that tends to visit us from time to time, well, then I would need physical evidence for that. Right? And it's lacking.
Yep.
Now, whether that's because of government cover-ups or because they just kind of zip in and zip out and that's it, that's all they're doing, and just kind of observing and stuff like that, well, all right, well, that's cool. But there's still a lack of that hardcore physical evidence. Like, I want one to show up on the news, right? Or whatever it is, right? If they're so big into like, oh, all the stuff going on in the world, okay, well, then have a meeting with NATO.
Well, what about the
Yeah.
like the implants, the implant phenomenon? Like, there's so many people that have had things taken out of their body, like metallic objects. I'm sure Krys could speak to that. Does that qualify as evidence to you?
No, because a human being could do that to someone. I could have thrown Jeff when he was visiting my house in an ice bath and taken both of his kidneys out. Doesn't mean it was the aliens, right? So I mean,
Well, there's definitely like Milab projects. How
Sure.
advanced are you guys familiar with Milabs? I talk about this a lot. Military abductions.
Yep.
And again, military is kind of a psyop term in itself, because it's probably not the military. It's probably some
Right.
secret
Other
corporation.
Yeah.
But these Milab operations where they abduct people and pretend that it's aliens, those operations have existed. How advanced they are, I don't know. Was it just like them pulling up in a Suburban dressed up as aliens and like they drug you and like you think that you got abducted, or are they pulling up in some like super advanced UAP that we just have
Right.
no idea that exists since the 70s or whatever? You know what I mean? Like, either one is possible, and there's been whistleblowers that have come out and said that the more extreme has happened. So it's
Yeah,
possible
I
that
mean-
none of this is aliens, is all I'm saying. This is why I went back to 95% of this is probably here on Earth.
Jeff is definitely like my grounding point when it comes to aliens, because he's I mean, he'll pull up a patent for the Tier 3B or for a non-gasoline, anti-gravity defying
Mission.
propulsion system that the federal government has, and they'll just whip it out and send a link to it, and you can read the entire whatever it is patent on it.
Well,
And it's
that's
just
just
like-
because they back engineered the alien craft. That's how the
Exactly.
I mean-
government has it, guys.
Obviously. But it's like, so, I'll hear stuff like this and I'll be like, well, I mean, clearly,
I
it's
think
not the
there's
aliens. It's
something
just,
I heard.
it's our own folks. They're just, doing wild stuff.
I don't know where I heard this, but I've heard it, and it makes perfect sense to me that the intelligence agencies have an incentive to seed the public with alien propaganda. The incentive is if we're creating something that's just like so far ahead of whatever, Iran, China, take your pick, right? Whoever the enemy is today. If we're developing something that's so far advanced, we don't want them to know anything about it, right? It's perfectly reasonable for them to like propagate the news cycle and like take over, like when they had all the news covering the UAP hearings and stuff like that, and it was like, oh, everybody was like, oh my god, is disclosure going to happen? Like, and everybody's like, no, it's a distraction. No, it's not really a distraction. It's just they're muddying the water. They're just like,
Right.
oh, we don't know where this is, and dude is like, yeah, there's biologicals. We got biologics that we've recovered and shit. And it's like, dude, you're being super vague, and like that could mean anything, right? So to me, it's not really aliens. They don't have to back engineer this stuff. I mean, a lot of this technology is stuff that people have explained, right? Like mathematicians. I've sat and listened to like 6-hour podcasts with some of these nerds that explain how this could be done. There's no reason to think that like a couple billionaires could pull some of them together and be like, yo, let's make this happen, and just be quiet.
Hmm.
I mean,
I don't know.
I can get on board with that to a point. I mean, but back to the government being competent. I mean, for them to pull off, like, let's like make this propaganda, but we can't make it too much. Like, we have to walk this perfect line of making sure that we're seeding yet not going overboard so people don't freak out, because we don't want to like have to deal with the fact that we could be accused of a cover up. I mean, you're talking a very detailed, complicated, like spanning decades and decades, where this would have had to be passed down through generation to generation to generation. I mean, what you're talking about would just, to pull that off, like, that just doesn't seem like, it just seems way more believable that it is actually aliens and like someone trying to pull off this huge
Sure.
complicated plan. Does that make sense?
It does, but I
Well-
don't think it'd be as complicated as it might seem. I mean, if you
disagree.
own all of the major media corporations from like the 40s on up until the internet comes out, which they did, right? You have a chokehold on all information. This is why nobody knew about Epstein. This is why nobody knew about Diddy. This is why nobody knew about any of the crazy shit that's been happening that we're all starting to figure out now.
Right.
But it eventually comes out. That's what
Exactly.
we're trying to say, is that it eventually comes out because people can't keep their mouths shut. And
Right.
I've brought
Eventually,
this
this will
up.
come out too.
It is coming out.
I've brought
People-
this up a dozen times on the show before. Jake and I are both military vets, and Chris, you could probably attest to this too. The military is it sucks, and it's not good at what everyone thinks it does.
It's not efficient. It's not.
Yeah.
Well,
Well,
this
and
is why
the
I
other
always go
thing
back
that
to
I
it.
struggle with, sorry, one question I have is like, you guys being aviation, maybe you can answer this for me. Because
Yeah.
one of the things I have a hard time believing is that we would send, military test, black ops, green triangles over a ship in the San Diego Bay, not notify anyone, and like why would we attack our own or expect to display this technology over our own ships and not expect them to react or attack or do? Why would we do it there? Why would they do that constantly? It seems like.
Right, we wouldn't, and this is exactly why I think that it's not the government, right? You're right, the government's incompetent; they can't build roads. So
Yeah.
I'm with you 100% on that.
Very incompetent.
It's not the government. There's probably like a
So you're
handful of
thinking
people.
like
There's a
Boeing
handful
or
of people.
one of them.
Yeah, Boeing, Raytheon, Lockheed
Raytheon,
Martin, Northrop Grumman. I mean, dude, take your pick. BlackRock is probably funneling so
Yep.
much money
Yep.
through so many shell companies that are going into companies that none of us ever even heard about, right? Like I just listed off like 5 of them that we all know of.
Right.
But there's probably 5,000 of them that nobody knows of, right? It's called ABC Incorporated or whatever the hell it is. And it's some black budget program.
But if the government can't be cohesive, what makes you think that another group could be cohesive and do that?
Because
Money.
the private sector
Money.
is better at everything.
Money. I mean, because,
But
well,
you can't
how long
erase
can it
human
last?
psychology.
Let's look at the, like you said, totally off topic, but like the Diddy thing. I mean, they can only keep it quiet for like 30 years or so, right? I
Right.
mean, there seems like a limit on people's ability to keep things silent, despite the power, the money, the influence, the fear. It just seems like at some point things burst.
I want to just respond to what you said. Like, you can't change human psychology, and you're absolutely right. I agree. The people that are doing this behind the scenes, not government, right? These people, I call it the breakaway civilization, because to me that's what it really is, right? They're shitty people, in my opinion. They're corrupt. They're
Right.
pulling strings behind the scene that are making our society a living hell. So it's not, I'm not claiming that like they're doing a great job with all of this. They're doing a terrible job. They're fudging it up. They're using this free energy technology or whatever else they have in ways that they shouldn't be. And it's fucking everything up, right? So I'm with you on I agree. I think we both agree. I just think that maybe like the possibilities of what they're able to do, and when I say they, I'm talking about the breakaway people.
Yeah.
I think that they could do more than we think they can. That's all.
That super secret group of people that run the world.
They're not even super secret. There's a handful of them in government. There's a handful of them that own like corporations, a few billionaires, a few Saudi princes that are trillionaires.
Mhm.
It's just a
And
handful
they're all
of people here and
lizard
there.
people, right?
No.
All of them.
No.
Yeah. Yeah.
Some of them are, not all of them.
No, that's a whole thing too. I could go on a rant about that because I know it's a joke and we all joke about the lizard people thing. I joke about the lizard people thing, but no person who really understands that conspiracy thinks that anybody's actually a lizard. That's not the gist of it, right?
Right.
This
Well,
is
what
why
are
I
they?
always go on these in debate, like when I do debates with about flat Earth, right? I don't think the Earth is flat. I just understand what the flat earthers really think, not what everybody thinks they think.
Okay.
So I'll debate on their behalf, right?
Yes.
Yes. So
No, I actually love this conversation. This has been so good.
Good. This is what we do. This is every episode.
This
I
is our
love it.
argument. Yeah.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah,
Good.
Well,
go ahead.
no, go ahead, please, Chris.
I really didn't have anything.
Oh no, okay. Well, shoot. I mean, we went down a bunch of rabbit holes there.
Yep.
I hate to cut it short, but we're already an hour and a half into this recording,
Yeah.
and Jeff
Are we
is probably
really?
freaking out right now.
yeah, my bedtime was when we started.
Look at him. He's
Wow,
so
I didn't realize it was that far in.
I
right. It goes
know.
fast here in the infinite
That
rabbit
was
hole.
crazy.
So much fun.
Look at Jeff. Look at him. He's all tuckered out. Look at him.
The chat's been going crazy.
Boy.
The chat is packed. People have been blowing up the chat this whole time.
Ooh, do we have anything in the chat that we need to ask? Does anybody in the chat have any questions for Chris or Ariel?
Well, Wowen said, I worked at Northrop Grumman, had a secret clearance, and couldn't see the F-35. So they can keep a lot of stuff silent with top secret security clearance is usually a reason for it. So our enemies can't get the layouts for any of it, right? And this is why I don't think the military is involved too, because it's just too much risk for the military to do this stuff. It's just assholes who probably had a contract with the military at some point, right, to develop the SR-3B or whatever it was, right? And once that contract was done and they were done and their clearances were pulled and all that shit, they had some knowledge. They were like, wait a minute, dude, there's free energy technology. Like we could just get together some other people, some billionaires and so on, and we can just do our own thing on the side and nobody will know about it. And by the time we have some device and the government finds out about it, well, we've got the device. So what are they going to do? You know? And I think that's kind of what happened.
I don't think Jeff is that tired based on he's
Look,
still,
no,
he's still going. He's still going.
He's so tired.
He
Look at him.
says
I just
this
get
stuff
amped.
in his
He's
sleep.
basically sleeping.
This is yeah, I'm in a flow state. I could do this while I'm sleeping.
He's awake while sleeping, just like Chris. Yeah.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah.
He
Hey,
sleeps
there's
with
a
his eyes
song-
open. It's weird.
He astral projects into Lockheed Martin's like top secret bunkers, and then he comes back on the show and tells us about it. And we're like, "You're full of crap. You're an idiot." No, I've seen it.
Yeah.
Well, this has been so much fun, guys. We really appreciate you inviting us on and just chilling
Yeah,
and
this is
having
awesome.
an awesome conversation. I hope we can do it again sometime.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Absolutely.
It's fun.
All right, so I'm going to go ahead and close out. If you guys can just hang on just a minute after we shut down, we'll just go over a few things. Before we do, though, let's get you guys to share your socials and any other links, websites, platforms that you would like to share with all the listeners of the Infinite Rabbit Hole.
Go ahead, Ariel.
Yeah, you can find me on X, aka Twitter, at AES Skywatcher. And our YouTube is The Elephant in the Room 411. So there's several Elephant in the Room podcasts, but ours is The Elephant in the Room 411 on YouTube, right, Chris?
Yes, I was just looking it up to make sure because I'm really bad about that. So yeah, Elephant in the Room 411 is how you will find us.
Right on.
And I'm Chris Devine. I'm pretty much only on Twitter. Yeah, I love, and I do have a YouTube channel which has a few videos, and hopefully one day I'll have more better videos to upload there when I get some help with that. But yeah, we'd love for you guys to follow us and join our show, and we'd love to have you guys return the favor and have you guys come join our show one day. That would be amazing. Love talking about this subject, and it's been fun. I really, really appreciate the invite.
And
Yeah,
differing opinions never scare us. Like we're always up for it. We enjoy it. We love getting other people's perspectives. So this is definitely our jam.
Good
Nice.
stuff. Good. Jeff went ahead and linked your socials in the chat. I think the highest we got to today was 15 people. We've only been doing Twitch for a few weeks.
Oh wow.
It's been about a month now, right? Something like that.
Yeah, maybe a month. Yeah.
If you are watching right now on Twitch and you're not following, or whatever you can do on Twitch, is it follow or subscribe right now?
Follow right now.
Right?
We're,
Okay.
we're a few short, and then we can get subscribers.
If you're not following, please hit the follow button. Help us get to our 50 followers so that we can become, what is it? What are we trying to become, Jeff?
Affiliates.
Thanks,
Twitch
man.
affiliate.
You finished my sentences. It's like
What
we're
are
in
you
love.
trying to become? What's it called?
Affiliate.
Affiliates.
Oh, affiliate.
Yeah. Just another way to make money off podcasts. It's
Yeah. Hey.
yeah. I mean, we only get, I think we get like a half a penny per play through Spotify. So
It's not much, but it
Yeah,
opens up
it's-
donations and things like that. So
Right.
yeah,
Well, that's
true,
good.
true. For those who died, said go to bed, Jeff.
go to bed, dude.
All right. Well, Jake, Jeff, you guys got anything to say before we leave?
Good night.
Ariel, Krys, thanks for coming on the show. Thanks for having a fun little, I don't want to call it a debate, but a discussion
Dialogue.
where we disagreed with everything we said. It was fun. I would like to come on. I think I speak for all the guys. We'd like to come on your guys' show. I think it'd be pretty
Yeah.
dope. So
We would
Yeah.
love
it'd
that.
be a fun time. But yeah, thanks for hanging out with us for an hour and a half. Yeah,
Yeah.
that was great.
Yeah, you bet. Awesome. Thank you guys for having us. It was fun. I love it. Let's keep up the dialogue and keep up the conversation. I think that's what the world needs. I mean, if nothing else, it opens up our curiosity in our mind and you know, and it keeps I think having more conversations like this takes the other difficult conversations in life that none of us like to have, like about politics. But, you know, those are sometimes conversations we have to have with each other in order to move each other forward. And one thing I always like to say, people are afraid of aliens and others and all that. And sometimes I'm more afraid of each other as humans. So these dialogues, I think, are what we need to just contribute to a better society. So thank you guys for being open to do that.
Nicely said.
Right on. Well,
All right.
that has been another episode of the Infinite Rabbit Hole podcast. I am your host, Jeremy, and we'll see you right here in the next fork in the path of the Infinite Rabbit Hole. And hold on. And next Sunday on October 20th, Halloween costumes is what
That's
we're
right.
wearing.
I forgot.
Oh, wow.
Yep.
Wow.
So Jeff, you better go to your local Halloween store and buy your $5 mask.
Are we going to be
It's
back
been
in Palm Beach
blown out
in
by
time
a
for that?
hurricane. There is no Halloween store anymore.
Oh no, there's a Spirit open. They'll find like a shipping container or something.
Don't you worry. I already got it. I'm all right.
Yeah. All right. Next Sunday. Anybody in the chat, make sure you're here. It's going to be hilarious. We're all going to look stupid.
I love it.
Dude,
Well-
Jeff's gonna wear exactly what he's wearing now and be like, I'm Eminem.
No, I'm the real Slim Shady.
Oh yeah.
And the topic is Men in Black Part 3, where we go over encounters. So we did all the information in Part 1. Part 2, we're going to cover encounters and other stories
That's
in Part
awesome.
3. All right. Well, I'm going to do this one more time. That has been another episode of the Infinite Rabbit Hole podcast. This time it's for real. Travelers, we will see you right here in the next fork in the path of the Infinite Rabbit Hole. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Ariel, you got to say bye.
Oh, bye.
There it is. Hey, everybody. Thanks for checking out the Infinite Rabbit Hole podcast. If you're looking for more of our stuff, head on over to infiniterabbithole.com, where you can find links to all the podcast players that we are available on, and even our video platforms such as TikTok and YouTube. While you're there, make sure to check out all the links for our socials and hit that follow so you know when all the new stuff from our podcast comes out. And until next time, travelers, we'll see you right here in the next fork in the path of the Infinite Rabbit Hole. Bye.